Hi everyone. Welcome to the very first Amsterdam.rb Meetup of the year. So we have a code of conduct. You can find it here, which basically means this is the theme of the Amsterdam Ruby Meetup. Actually, this is the theme of the Stichting Ruby NL. It's great. Floor couldn't be here because she is in Austria doing career stuff.
We have
Arno.
Picture.
So if you have any questions about a meetup, or an online one, or do something with Rails Girls, then please hit us up. Today's event is hosted by Feedback Fruits, and they're not just hosting the meetup, but also pizza and the drinks. And we're small. We would like to give the stage to Bas, who is part of Feedback Fruits.
First of all, welcome at Feedback Fruits. Welcome at Freedom Lab. So Freedom Lab is the co-working space that Feedback Fruits has our office in. This is the canteen that we could graciously use for this meetup. So welcome to you all. So a little bit, just 2 minutes about Feedback Fruits. Our goal in life as a company is to make every course around the world fascinating. So what most of us experienced, especially people who perhaps graduated recently, might still remember sleeping in the college benches. Feedback Fruits is a company of people who've all witnessed this really close up, and we said, let's put a stop to this because this is a waste of everyone's time. So what we do is we work with 25 universities around the world and counting. A lot more pilots are starting right now in 7 different countries with a team of 30 plus people right now here in Amsterdam to solve the problem. So what we try to do is we try to make sure that students don't just learn for their exams in the final part. So what you often see is that this is a first draft and then just the final part, that's when they start studying. What we try to do is make sure that from the start of the course until the end, there's interesting, engaging activities that they can do. So we make all kinds of tools to help teachers engage and activate their students in learning. So that's our motto, always be learning, and that's why we really like to host meetups like these. We ourselves are avid users of Ruby and of Ruby on Rails. So I'd like to say thank you all for coming. Thank you for being our guests here in Freedom Lab. Enjoy the Amsterdam.rb meetup. And of course, yes, we are hiring. So if you're interested in education, in mission-driven work, then please talk to one of us. So the first face is Lily. She's around there. Hi. Richard is in the audience there. That's the last face. And my face you've already seen for far too long. Let me give the stage.
No.
Back. Let me take this. Yes.
Okay.
Hi. Right guy.
Yeah. Smooth, right? Right.
No one noticed.
No one noticed. So we have another thing we're doing. We're organizing a workshop. We're not actually creating it. So Dirk-Jan and Mark are creating it. They're part of the community. And it's an advanced workshop, Rails, JavaScript. But I will give the floor now back to Dirk-Jan because he can explain more, because he is one of the creators of the workshop. Oh, okay.
All right, so I wasn't supposed to do this, and I unfortunately couldn't make it. So she sent me something I should say. If you're ever writing JavaScript, ever, and you have to do it in Rails, even if you like it, please fill in this survey because we'll be using it to determine what exactly we're going to be covering in the workshop. And the workshop will be refactor your JavaScript code to make it easier to work with, as in easier to write, easier to reuse, and easier to maintain. And that's it. Yeah. If you see my talk a few months ago, it will be an extension of that, basically modularizing your JavaScript. And we will be covering Webpack, we will be covering why stimulus or why not, and we will be covering integration with existing libraries out there. Right.
Hand of coding, right?
Yes. Oh, hand of coding. Yes. So you get one-on-one. You can ask us anything. Like, don't worry, just come. Yeah, that's it.
I also posted the link in our Netherlands Slack channel, so you can also put it there if you don't want to take a picture or whatever. We We also have another, because we're part of a community, some discount on the code motion Amsterdam 2020 on May 27th and 28th. You get a 30% discount. These tickets are like insanely expensive, like till 600 euros or something. But so if you'd like to go, it's really nice. It covers everything about development, and they were like, Ruby community, we like you here, have 30% discount. So okay, next. So the program of today is we have two amazing speakers, like absolutely totally fabulous. The first one, Arno, is like he's also the part of the community. Yes, during the day, software developer, he's singer. What?
I'm just getting nervous.
You're getting nervous? Be gentle. He will talk about some migrations and a love story. Then we have a short break. Oh, you can also, we have a Q&A for 10 minutes after the talk. We have a break. You can get some refreshments. And the second talk will be by Gabriel. He will talk about the new Ruby 2.7 upgrade, and also a Q&A after that. And then we'll have some time for some networking till 21:30, until bus says
Out of here.
so. First talk by Arno.
Let's set up a laptop.
Huh?
So pretty.
Oh, sorry. We use the same column.
Oh, clickers. I'm so happy.
Oh, did I break your clicker?
If I can blame this on you, yes. No.
It worked on my computer.
There you go.
Here we go. Anyway, so I'd really like to talk about Rails and MySQL, running migrations in MySQL, because where I work, that is exactly the databases we're using to store our relationship. So maybe you're on Postgres. Well, maybe there are two fantastic speakers, but then there will be at least one fantastic talk. But if MySQL is your thing, if migrations are your thing, and if you want to learn something that is also important in Postgres about running migrations, then just please stay along, because it will be interesting anyway. It's not only going to cover MySQL-ish things. So I work with WeTransfer. I'm a backend engineer there. I used to be working for the public API, the thing that we have. We're discontinuing it shortly, so if you want an account, do it this week, otherwise you can't have access anymore. I've been working on our flagship product called WeTransfer.com, making sure you can work with multiple people on delivering something. That is still beta tested, so you might not know this thing now, but you will if you use WeTransfer later this year. Also, the company makes a lot of things. If it reeks of creativity, we want to have a say in it. Also, we're hiring. So, most importantly, I mean, you show up here, so you think I'm talking about something that I care about, but most important for me is the question, how did we get here? What is the reason that I even want to talk about migrations? Because it's not something that I really, really, really care about. But it started really simple. Just a small feature, need an extra association on something that was quite busy. And one of the senior engineers of the company then said, look, this is the transfers table. That's what pays our salary. So don't you touch it. I'll just briefly let these people explain what I went through. By the way, This is me. Not important. The other guy is the colleague.
Now listen, cadet. I got a job for you. See this button? Don't touch it! It's the history eraser button, you fool! So what'll happen? That's just it. We don't know. Maybe something bad. Maybe something good. I guess we'll never know. Because you're going to guard it. You won't touch it, will you?
I just want to run a migration, man.
Oh, how long can trusty cadet Snippy hold out? How can he possibly resist the diabolical urge to push the button that would erase his very existence? Will his tortured mind give in to its uncontrollable desires? Can he withstand the temptation to push the button that even now beckons him ever closer? Will he succumb to the maddening urge to eradicate history at the mere push of a single button? The beautiful, shiny button, the jolly, candy-like button. Will he hold out, folks? Can he hold out? Now I dare! Tune in next week as...
I confirm this is how it actually went.
It was a somewhat emotional meeting. So at first I was scared. Weird thing I shouldn't touch. Then I thought, this is what things to change. I settled for a very bad solution. Then I thought, I really want to migrate this database just because I'm told not to. So, what is the problem? He was anxious for a very good reason, because what he wants is having a WeTransfer.com where all our users can manipulate data. They can upload their stuff, share it, they can even download it. All those things are manipulation to our data, also known in database terminology as DML, the data manipulation language. So all those things are happening to a predefined structure, because your database, at least in MySQL terms, is, well, using a predefined structure. And we really like a predefined structure. Then on the other hand, if you run a migration, it's called a data definition language, or DDL, not to be mistaken by that Windows thing that has the same abbreviation, but a data definition language. And that is defining or redefining the structure of your table. So DML is good, DDL is better, but there is a small problem. Because they don't mix. You can't be inserting or changing or potentially even reading data when the structure is off. And to let you experience how offsetting it can be when you're expecting something and then you don't get it, that is when people start calling presenters. I mean, this is not what you're expecting, right? I can take this call. But it's getting annoying. So you're expecting a talk, and then potentially I'm going to just say to my dad, look, again, this is the worst possible moment to call me. I hope I put it on silent because he will probably call me anyway. So your database is the same thing as you just experienced. What the hell is happening? So you can't be inserting, updating, or deleting things while you're changing the structure. A predefined structure that you can trust is there is quite important. So it is the moment that you think about downtime. And I want you to think about downtime. What is it? Anyway, yeah, just during this talk, think about downtime all the time. So the data definition language has to do with three things: creating tables, altering tables, and dropping tables. So let's just cover them all. In the create table, there are not that many issues. We're just saying, look, We're not only doing transfers now, we'll also be sending emails out. Sure, you have a migration, nothing of your business is depending on it. So it's just like creating a blog when you don't have one, and you think I'm so going to use this thing, or creating a table that you want to experiment with. Nothing new. So I think that's competent. So creating a table. You don't need to do any special things. Creating a table is just instantly or almost instantly a database. You don't have to do any magic trickery because you're not inserting to that structure and the rest of your tables. They're not so scared. If you build a new table, they just think, hello, fellow citizen, fine. And they just keep on doing what they were doing. Then the older table is a bit different because you try to change the system that is somewhat in use. And it may or may not work out. So let's make a small analogy. You might know Git, commits, branches, merges, and merge conflicts. Changing the structure while inserting stuff. That's what we're talking about. So I have, on one hand, your branch, where you're actually building something, and then you have my branch, where I'm just converting tabs to spaces, because that's the level I operate on. That doesn't work. So it looks a bit like this. You want to change the definition of the table, but potentially there are a lot of manipulations happening. And for some reason, there was not a merge conflict here. So let's just see how MySQL handles this thing. Oh, look, I can scroll. There are two ways of altering a table. You can say, well, I want to do it. I want to perform this migration on a copy, and I'm setting my default logs, or I'm just going to do it in place, and I'm going to set no logs, which is fantastic because that means that you can just do it while, so you can run DDLs while DMLs are running, which is fantastic. But most people know this copy and logs is default. It's a default, so you never seen the logs thing, but it's there. And it means, oh, hello, you're not doing anything because I'm doing something. Just wait for it. And then eventually, the log is released, and all your customers have already found your competition. Yeah, so they are not using your product anymore because, well, you were just offline for 6 hours, and it wasn't Christmas. So let's look at the in place and what is none, because it's nice. You can do that in MySQL 5.7. MySQL 8 even has a new way of doing things as smoothly as possible. It sets no logs. It runs the DDL, keeping a buffer of all those manipulations that need to conform to the new DDL, because, well, it is changing things and also handling things coming in or deleting or whatever, and needs a buffer. And that's profit. Fantastic. Well, until you run out of buffer memory, and then it just and you're in this regular copy, you get all the logs for free, and then your customers go away. So that sucks. Anyway, the pros. Hey, you get to change your structure. That's all of them. Because this is exactly the way how MySQL does it. You can't insert something to something that is changing. And SoundCloud didn't really like that. They created this thing, a pure Ruby-esque way to handle DDLs and DMLs. It's fantastic. It looks like this. You just have a regular active record migration. You just call something from the large Hadron migrator. And you can do DDLs even. Look, they use the same terminology. So I'm onto something. It's from their README. And well, you can do your migrations. And it's fine, it works fantastically, but there's no money in it. So Percona came along. They use Perl instead of Ruby, which is better or something. And they focus on increased visibility. You could just ask your engineers if you're a C-suite person, but you have Percona now, making sure that you have increased visibility. But they sell it to your bosses or bosses' bosses. That's also good because, as I found out, they have a fantastic business model. When your databases need their kind of information, their kind of love, you you have all the money to pay them anyway. Anyway, so on your Mac, you can also install it like this, just to fiddle around with it. And there's a tool called Percona Online Schema Change. I'll probably say PTOSC from now on, because it's shorter. PTOSC, Online Schema Change. It's online, so it's better. So, and it comes from those people that sell buzzwords. They also know a thing or two about databases, don't worry. But the actual question is, how the hell? Because it does mix, right? Right. Well, 9 steps, or 10 if you count 0. First, let's have a look. You copy the structure over to your table with the new name, users new, if it was your user table. Only the structure, thank you very friendly. Then you're going to run your migration against that new table. And since it's empty, it's quite fast. Then you set some triggers. Anything that will be inserted to the left will be inserted to the right in the same transaction. So it either works or it doesn't. Fantastic. Then you release the log. So this can be done sub-second. That means that you have some delays. If your timeout is at 20 milliseconds, then potentially you have a lot of errors. But usually you'll be fine. And you're going to copy everything over. So at the top, copying things over. In the middle, a DML is happening. It's instantly going to the other table as well in the same transaction. And then we just keep on copying data over because, well, that's what we're about to do. And then we're going to log all the tables again. And then we're going to drop the triggers and swap the tables, which sounds fantastic, but it's just a very silly rename. An atomic rename. First, you rename this one from users into users del. Then the name users is free, so this thing can rename to users. And also happening sub-second. And then you release the lock, and everybody's inserting again. Yes? Fantastic. And then eventually you drop the table. Unless you have an endless supply of disk space. Now, sure. So, what is the fun? Well, we can have DDLs at the same time as DMLs, inserting data while changing the structure, and the thing will just figure out what to do. It might involve you setting the same default values for columns, so you don't have to change your models, things like that. They're just 2 short logs. Well, there are 2, so it sounds like more, but they're really, really short. And it's either rated natively in Ruby, or there's a nice wrapper for PTOC called departure. They really want to leave something. So, for departure, you just have the Percona toolkit on your server. You just say in your gem file, I'd like to have departure. You do db migrate, and you're done. So, looks like this. It's really, really cool because the command line of PTOC is horrendous. So you want to have this wrapper around it so you can just run your regular migration. So your migrations will take longer because it's copying things over. But it's fine because it's not locking. It's not blocking. Canceling migration, though, will give you a copy of your data and all your triggers, so the thing will be quite busy even when you're not migrating. But I guess that's fine. Then, of course, you need to drop your table, which if you don't let the tool do it, you have to do it by hand, which is always a moment that I figure out where is my deodorant. And of course, it requires more disk space. But disk space, it's just cheap. But there is something with triggers. It's happening in your transaction. And the fact that it's happening in your transaction means your transaction will take longer. So let's just assume from the example before that our users table is quite busy. I wasn't thinking about why the users table is busy, but potentially have a website trafficking humans. I don't know. And let's say that your instance is already at 80% capacity. If you put some triggers in there, and you're not even copying rows, you're already going to go over whatever that instance can use. Instance being a very vague word, because it can be your table, it's too busy, maybe you're not having enough write operations, your CPU is the bottleneck, I don't know. But if you're already on 80% of something, it will get worse. And then you press Ctrl-C, and the triggers are still there, and then you really need your deodorant. I know. So, what is a relational database manager to do? Well, first thing is wait for Christmas. Because everybody wants to work at Christmas when your site is not very busy, so you can run your migrations and you just have to postpone changing your business till the end of the year. We actually discussed this for longer than minutes. I am the guy that pushes that button, remember? So I was like, need to change this, but I couldn't because the site was flopping. Well, it wasn't when the migration started, but on Tuesday morning around 10, WeTransfer gets some traffic, and I wasn't changing the users table, but our downloads table, and for some reason, people started downloading our transfers, and that's exactly when the whole thing went just. So that's up. And then I thought, well, there must be something wrong, so we just restarted it later, and then immediately it went wrong again. That's my phone. So that was all very annoying. So you use a triggerless solution. Because, well, we can't have that we're shooting ourselves in the foot with our own tools, right? It sucks. But you have to get your inserted data into that other table. It needs to be replicated on the other thing. And that's exactly what triggers do for you. But people like GitLab are kind of smart, so they know that there's another way how you can replicate data. It's called replication. It's a replica log. It has all your statements that you need to replicate. So I really don't care how you're going to call it. Well, I do, but row-based logging to rescue, because that kind of logging tells you on a row level, it is an entity or an object, if you're that kind of person, a model instance, on a model instance level, what should be done about it. So it's very handy to run it on a very separate database. So it's a really nice tool. It's very awesome. So I'm just pointing at the screen here. This is your users table. This is your replica of users table. This one doesn't exist. Neither does this one. But this thing, GitHub has 30 read replicas all the time. So if you create a pull request, that everybody reading your data can see the pull request as well. So what they have is a replica that is not running late, well, maybe sub-second. And then Ghost comes along saying, ooh, you want to change this table? I know the structure. I'm going to create this table on your main database, migrate that thing, and just by looking at the bin log of the replica, that is preferred mode of operation, it will just apply everything to that table, copy data over from this table into there, applying everything over there as well, and then eventually it figures out, I'm done, and just sits there. No, really, I'm done. And it's nice, because it means that you can just say, ooh, we're going to switch over those tables at Christmas. Because it will be done all the time. So I had a lot of images, but you just saw me explain how the thing works. If you want to get more in depth, read their documentation because it's awesome. So there are no triggers. So if this thing needs to be throttled, it has some very same defaults, but you can configure the hell out of it. It will just do nothing, but absolutely nothing on your main database. That's exactly where you want the thing to be. I'm migrating my data. I'm running DDLs and DMLs. Ooh, it's very busy. Shush now. And it's really shutting up. While it's running, you can even send some triggers. Sorry, not using trigger words. Again. You can send some information to the thing to change configuration while it's going. Saying, well, you should be running batches of 1,000 rows instead of 10. Things like that. You can configure it all the way. And you can even run multiple migrations against different tables at the same time. Fun fact, while experimenting with this tool, I did it on production. No, I was so sure it was going to work out. I didn't even care about reading the manual and just running it. And then I found out I did something wrong, but it worked anyway. So, the con is you need a replica. You may not have a replica, you may not have a need for it, but it's strongly advised to have one. It takes even longer because all your data is going to, well, go into many places. If you have many replicas, it will go in even more many places. And then it takes up a lot of space on all the hosts. And there's no active record wrapper. Is that bad? Yeah, because you can't run RailsDB migrate. But based on departure, we've built Arrival. And it is in such a bad shape that I can't demo it. But we'll work on it. Because we want this thing to work in our tools. Sorry?
It will arrive shortly.
Exactly. But it's like public transport in the Netherlands, departure is somewhat late. So, what it looks like in practice, can you even read that thing? So, this is why you want a wrapper, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to convert all your migrations into this thing because the only same lines are here, the table is users, and I'm going to convert it into UTF-8 multiplied 4. That's a MySQL thing, don't ask. It's really simple. And it rebuilds your whole table, which is a good thing because you can absolutely not combine DMLs and VDLs while rebuilding your table. But it does it, and it does it flawlessly. As a result, by the way, after heavy experimentation with this tool, all the tables of WeTransfer.com can now store that character set, meaning Japanese people can put in their names and we can use emojis. Yes!
Finally!
Yes.
Emojis for
It took a while. So, what it looks like in practice, how shall I say it? This was the first try and it failed. This was the second time and it failed. Less human error, more what is our system doing anyway error.
What are we seeing on the y-axis?
Sorry? Sorry. What you see over here is time. What you see over here is 1 billion records.
It's a big table.
Yeah. So, and what you see over here, all those horizontal lines, is my colleague Wonder. He wrote a nice script deleting all the things that we don't want. So he's deleting downloads every night. Well, a cron job is doing that. But it means that the database is so busy that Ghost just thinks, oh, take a rest, man. And the database is very busy. And then Ghost kicks in again, thinking, now's my time again. So this, by the way, is fat fingering Control-C. That sucks. I mean, that I fat finger Control-C is not that bad. But I think I had to explain to about 60 colleagues that I fat finger Control-C. But I really immediately dropped the table so you don't see the thing sitting there for a long time. I was like, what? Drop it! Anyway, so they went fine. That is because you don't see the thing here. Before I had those problems with PTOC, so it's very good at dropping tables. Yeah, PTOC. So in here, we thought, we shouldn't do it on a Friday afternoon. That's when it probably finishes. We shouldn't be doing it during the weekend because our data people will probably have a failing build tooling then. So we'll just have to do it on Monday. And then on Monday, everybody felt sick at 6 a.m. So we went to Tuesday. And then over Slack, we communicated with each other like, yes, are we really awake? Quite. No, let me get another coffee. Sure, all set. Giving a command to do the swap. Nothing happened. And it's retrying and retrying and retrying. In this example, 1,200 times. by the way, with a timeout of 10 seconds. So it's going to try to acquire a log for 10 seconds. It was on 120 seconds, 120 times. So quite often we're trying to get a log on those 3 tables, the 2 original tables and the one that had to be the deletes table also needs to have a log. And it didn't acquire one, and it was trying and trying and trying and delaying all traffic at 6 a.m. Nobody cared. And then it just said, look, I've done it 120 times. I'm just giving up. Doei. And then the tables were out of sync, so we could drop them again. And then we thought, why is that? Well, that is, not only is it stalling here because we're deleting data, but what we didn't notice at that time is that it was so busy deleting things everywhere that the database was just kind of busy, so it couldn't acquire the log on time, and it was still copying over, or actually handling deletions of rows that we didn't notice. So is it a human error? Yes, but not as bad as fat finger and Ctrl+C, thank you very much. And then later we said, Wednesday, night to Wednesday, night to Thursday is my day off on Thursday, so I don't swap tables then. And so on Friday we said, well, it's almost lunchtime. I think all the deletions are handled, so shall we swap the tables now because it's Friday, actually afternoon. Let's do it. And then we gave the command, and then immediately the terminal spat something like ah, and I thought, what went wrong? Nothing, it was just done. Sub-second, I was like, what, how? So, it works fantastically if you pay attention to your context. So, what is downtime anyway? You may or may not have been thinking about this. For me, downtime is this. Then you think, oh, well, that's up. Let's not do that again. Or at least not more than once again. Okay, sure. And then you start figuring out what better tooling is. How to write something that works better than the thing that you had up until that point. So every time you go down, get your deodorant and then a notebook. Yes, do it. Write down what went wrong, because otherwise you will just keep doing the same failure over and over again. It took me 42 years to arrive at this point. Anyway, so that was altering a table. Does it solve our problems? No, because we still have the problem of dropping tables. Because what you saw there is that we also dropped the table, but there is something involved in dropping a table. Because if you have larger tables, then still the database takes quite some time to drop it. Just because it can, because there are files and buffers and I don't know. But thank God our timeout is above that point, so we just delayed a lot of users. But there were no 500s triggered. So there was no downtime, so nothing to learn here. Well, actually, there is something to learn here because, well, the problem is that if you're going to drop a table with a lot of rows in there, and eventually also with a lot of things in your buffer pages, so the thing has just been written to, right after migration, for instance, and then probably the database is somewhat busy. So just very, 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 very controlled delete all your rows. You don't want to go too fast. You don't want to go too slow. And then when all those things are done, just wait. So there are no open buffer pages anymore. It's like watching paint dry. And then you drop it. And then non-blocking, it spends 6 seconds dropping the thing. So nobody's delayed, but still takes 6 seconds. So worst case scenario, you're going to delay your users by 6 seconds, but not 25. Anyway, we're open sourcing this binary shortly. It's also because Ghost is written in Go, we thought, well, let's learn Go and do it in Go, because then not only Ruby people can use it, but it needs to be incorporated into Arrival as well. So making it even harder. So dropping tables, covered. That means I have an answer for the question. Any questions? Hello, Ben.
Why do we need a replica then?
Well, the question is, sorry? Yeah, sorry. So the question is, why do we need a replica table? Well, it's the preferred mode of operation from Ghost, because it is the only way to guarantee that you're not polluting your master with busy things. Because it's not only migrating your data to a new table, it's also making status updates somewhere. And it likes to not do that on your master. As far as I know, that is the problem. But it has multiple modes of operation. You can even run it on your replica to just figure out if your migration is sound. Or you can even run it without a replica as long as you have row-based logging. So as long as you have a replication log, because Ghost connects to your replica log to figure out what should be done because it can't set triggers. And if you have a replica log, then usually you also have a replica anyway. And let's say that you're using Real 6, you potentially even use it to do your writes to one place and your reads to another. Does that answer your question? Merci. This is where you get to ask questions.
So you have this tool, Percona,
Percona,
and what is it called? Percona and then cloud substation.
PTOSC, Percona, online schema change.
Yeah, so I'm curious, where does the T come from?
Percona toolkit.
Percona toolkit.
Yeah. So then you think, why Ghost? Because GitHub online schema. Ghost. No, they even explain their name in the README, but it's almost as good as what I just did.
It's more of a comment, question, but as a former GitHub employee,
Yes.
multiple people have attempted to explain this tool to me over the years. Like, congratulations, I finally understand it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's not the applause time, but
Did you have any downtime with the website?
did I when using Ghost?
When
entire
any
process.
in this entire process, did the website ever go down?
I think we can point them out to the graph.
Did you not understand this slide?
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, like you explained that like the migrations failed, the website only has like longer requests.
Well, I have some colleagues, they already start running to the toilet when we delay our users by a second. And we have some colleagues, they say, well, we have an error budget of 20 minutes a month and we spend none of it, so we should try for more. Yeah?
And which buckets do you follow?
Yes, I am somewhere there. But yeah, we had downtime. We had downtime that was considered serious by some and a learning opportunity by others. No, but it is not even meant to be a silly joke. It's really a learning opportunity. Hello. Sorry? As far as I know, we don't. It were a billion rows, and I didn't read all of them.
Did your downtime lose any money, any profit?
Well, if you, I don't know the numbers for WeTransfer, so I'm just guessing here. But let's say that you make €100 a year. And we're down for 20 minutes each month. You can do the math. Every downtime costs money. And if you're going to do it more often while not learning from it, it's going to cost you even more. Does that answer? I was hoping for this question. Okay.
Why don't you go for Mongo? I mean, Cassandra.
Or whatever.
Or Postgres.
Yes. Or Postgres. Yes.
Why not SQL?
So, for MySQL, we have some very heavy traffic experience with MySQL. We know how to tweak it, and from time to time we make mistakes, and we get better at it. We have no clue how to do this thing with Postgres. That doesn't mean it can't be done, but it can't be done immediately by us. And this thing we can do.
Well, Postgres, you already have proper UTF-8 support. So
I never said it was a bad database, but since WeTransfer.com is not hosted on Heroku, we can just choose, okay? Anyway, so I want to give a big shout out to Ander and Julik over there because they helped me during this thing to, well, at least point out where my learnings are. And I really like to thank you for having me here. And well, say hello and connect. Thank you very much.
We'll be back right after the break, 30-minute break. So I'll have another drink. Let's go to the toilet, then I'll see you back in 30 minutes. Just a quick question. How many of you already have a ticket for Euroko in Helsinki?
I know.
It was sold out in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So now they're doing this random lottery thingy. So Melanie and I thought of something. Well, basically Melanie thought of something. We're doing a no-ruko.
Hello.
For everybody not going to Euroko,
If you're not
go
going
to no-ruko.
yes, we go to no-ruko.
In Helsinki.
Is that Norway?
What?
Well, it could be something like that. Or
Yeah, so
Nords.
and everyone
I
can
don't
give a
know.
talk and we have one mic, no tracks. And
They actually want to change so that the second round should be without the badge, but should be more tickets available. So this was the first batch with very limited tickets.
Yeah, but
what
50.
I understood is that the second will be more.
I don't know.
And beaten up by lottery.
The second
Yeah.
already went and it's over.
Yeah.
It's fine. If you don't want to go to
That's
no-ruko,
why, so they already
Wait,
said
now they're
sacrifice
doing
for
this
the lottery.
lottery. Yes,
They already. You didn't get the email for the lottery?
Nope.
I did. I was too late. Yeah.
No, good.
So no-ruko. We just thought of it and
Yeah.
we're like, hey, who can do this?
there's no schedule. It's just an open mic, 30-minute talks. If you're like over the 30-minute, the guy in a samurai suit comes to push you off the stage.
Was I too long?
It was not the source of inspiration.
But
So it's true that Naruto also has no location.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So two questions. Is it going to be at the exact same time as Euroko is?
Of course.
Lekker. Is Floor on board?
What?
Is Floor on board?
Are we doing the board, the boat hunt things again?
No.
No. No.
Yeah.
Why not?
No.
In Godsnaam. Yes. Sure. Yes.
Then you should also be on board.
Yes.
It's mutiny.
Sorry, I didn't mean to steal the stage. So our second guest, so no Ruko is a joke, obviously, but no one got a ticket. But oh, you already wanted? Why do we need to talk?
We have to talk to Ivan.
From
We need some months off.
We need 2 months off to organize it.
I think that there are still some tickets for sponsors. So if you can convince your company to become a sponsor, you can also get some tickets.
Oh, and it's not that expensive, actually, just one for tickets.
All those people actually solving the problem. I hate it.
We can probably apply for that.
Yes. You're so fun in that.
Okay, so let's continue with the second talk. We have Gabriel Mazetto. And he will talk about the newest Ruby
Thank you, everyone. Is the voice volume fine?
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, my name is Gabriel Mazetto, and if you're wondering how you can actually pronounce it the Portuguese way, is Gabriel Mazetto. There's a little subtitle there. It's the international way of expressing the sounds, and if you happen to like it, it's there. So I'm Brazilian, and I've seen at least one of us here, there. Maybe someone told me that there's more. So we're fine people, we're nice people. Talk to us. We can speak a little bit of Dutch, maybe. But English is a little bit better. So we are here today to talk about Ruby. So this is a Ruby conference. and it's not a conference of how you can spell and pronounce my name correctly. So Ruby is the language that is also used by my employer. So I work for GitLab. And GitLab, as a whole, I think everybody knows what it's all about. So it's where you can put your Git into your lab. So we are into the business. But anyways, so this is a talk about Ruby 2.7. It took a lot of time to do this whole animation, so please enjoy it. Ruby 2.7 beyond the changelog. So let's start by December 15th. This is Christmas for most of us. I'm not getting into religion right now, but it's usually a holiday. So yay for the holiday. And on the holiday date, I was just like looking at social media and trying to look for something special that I knew was coming by. But then suddenly I saw this. And I don't know if you can read Japanese. I can't yet. But a few words there I can recognize, like Ruby and 2.7 and news. So I was wondering if that means that Ruby 2.7 was finally released. And so I went online. This is another animation that took some time to do, so please enjoy. And I started to looking and scrolling around the webpage, so I could see that, okay, it's finally released. There are a few mentions there, like pattern matching, graphical improvements, yada yada. So I started scrolling. Okay, pattern matching looks nice. Graphical improvements looks nice. Compaction GC. Well, I think I've heard something about it. Okay. Separation of positional and keywords arguments. Okay, this looks like it's a little bit important. Okay, never mind. So, other notable new features. Oh, this is interesting. So there are a few bullet points there, and also yay, performance improvement. So I usually don't care about any of the other new things except for this, because this is usually for free. So you upgrade and your application magically becomes faster. So you don't have to do anything except make it work on the new version. So there are also other notable changes. A bunch of gems were extracted, a bunch of things were deleted, moved to something else. And yes, so after digesting a little bit, let's try to look at some highlights from 2.7. The first thing that I think it's the most important thing, because it's the #1 bullet point on the blog post, and it's about pattern matching. So what the heck is pattern matching? By the way, pattern matching is still an experimental feature, but the idea is that you have on one side some kind of data, and on the other side some kind of pattern, and it tries to match those patterns with the data. So something like this. So you have like 1, 2, 3, and you have a pattern of an array that expects something in 3 positions, and if it matches, it assigns the values from one to the other. And as I said, it's experimental, and it usually looks like this. So this is the most simple example. Your array, your pattern on the other side. And as you can see, with this, you can do the assignment to the C variable, and you get a 3 there. A more elaborated syntax will use case in, and then you can have a bunch of patterns and do a bunch of stuff with those patterns when they match. But I've omitted something really important here, which is this. So whenever you try to use it, you get a warning. And every time you use it, get a warning. Every time you use it, get a warning. And as you can see, they are trying to tell us something with this warning. That perhaps it's that pattern matching is experimental. And the behavior may change in a future version of Ruby. So should you use it? Should you care about? Maybe. If you happen to develop some libraries or some framework or something else, or you want to do that, and you want to use pattern matching, this is the perfect time to try. This is the perfect time to explore the ideas. And hopefully, if nothing changes too much, then you have something ready for Ruby 3.0. And if you also want to learn a little bit more about pattern matching, there was a really good talk by the guy who wrote it in Ruby at RubyConf last year. So he explains a lot better than I can do it. And perhaps he has some insights of how it will behave in Ruby 3.0. Another important thing that I saw there, which is the second bullet point, is REPL improvements. So REPL is basically when you type RB on your Ruby console, you have like this command line where you can type code, and it evaluates the code for you, and it gives you like the result of doing that processing. And those new improvements means that REPL is now written entirely in Ruby, so it doesn't use the readline library from C, it uses the readline library from Ruby, which means that it can work with syntax highlighting, both line support, and it's also considerably slower. So, yeah, great improvement. You've probably heard about this guy called Tenderlove. So he has been doing a lot of work with garbage collection and garbage compaction. So this is entirely his work. I think he was doing this for at least 3 years. It was possible, but then it's here. So it's really cool. It's really important. And you may also remember the talk about Hongli last year at this very same meetup, where he was explaining how the memory could be bloated in your Ruby application without you even doing anything wrong with it. So in my perception is that if you follow Hongli suggestion to either use his Ruby distribution or use CHANGELOG, and you combine this with compaction GC, we may have almost become to be able to control memory in Ruby. So that's exciting. So this is how you use it. You call compact into the GC library, and if nothing explodes, you get your memory defragmented. But this is probably most useful for, again, if you are either the author of Sidekick or Puma or Fusion Passenger or something that can actually control the flow of your application. Then you may be already trying to put some kind of out of the bench garbage collection trigger that will hopefully trigger this when your application is not super busy, and then try to recover some memory. But keep an eye on it. Maybe it's a little trick for a bloated rig task or something like that. This other one, sorry for the draw, it's very horrible, but I tried. I'm still learning. So it's the separation of positional arguments and keyword arguments. And what the hell is this? Why is it important? So let's take a look. So this is old Ruby syntax. So you have like your arguments in a hash. You declare a parts signature method signature parameter on your method, and then you pass your hash to that method, and you can use it. So it allows you to use any number of key value things inside your method. So this works, I think, even in 1.9. So you will find a lot of this in Rails and other libraries. A little bit different version of this is this. So here we are using Ruby 2.0 syntax, and you're declaring the keyword arguments. So you're declaring that your method expects A and B. You can pass the same hash, and it will magically work, but not in 3.0. So there is like this migration path. And this is how it will work with Ruby 2.7. You do that, you get a warning. And not only you get one warning, but you get two warnings. One is telling you that, well, it's deprecated and we're not going to help you anymore. And the other one is telling where that method is being called. So you should get like some kind of stack trace indication for where it was called, and it should help you go into the source code and change something. So this is usually how you do it. So instead of using that automatic conversion, use the double splat syntax, and then that's all you need to do here. But what is the double splat syntax? And how is it different from the single splat syntax? So let's take a look at a few other examples. So the most common use case that you may already know is this one. You use the double splat syntax, the double asterisk symbols, when you're defining your method. And what that means is that you can pass any or unlimited amount of keyword arguments, and then you can just ask for the for args, and you get a hash inside it. You can also do this thing in an inverted way. So you can have your keywords declared there, and then expand them when you're calling. The same thing can be said for the single splat arguments, where you declare a single one, you get an array, you pass any amount of position arguments, it gets converted, etc. Or vice versa. You pass an array, use the single splat, gets converted, and you can even mix the two. So you can pass an array and a hash, and vice versa. So if you like it or not, it doesn't matter. Ruby 3.0 will require you to use it every time, so starting to get used to it. But anyways, if you start to migrate your current code to use the new syntax, then things will go smoother for you when you upgrade Ruby. But so we've seen a few examples. Well, how hard it will be to actually migrate existing code to that? Well, I went again on Twitter to figure that out. And it looks like it's not going to be super smooth. At least not if you like have to maintain Rails or some very popular library and provide backward compatibility. So I had an idea. Okay, you just have to like fix code in one part of your code base. Maybe we can automate that with Google Code. So I asked it Twitter again, and nope, we can't. So there seems to be some very weird situations or corner cases, if you will, that doesn't work as smooth as we want. So sorry for that. But anyways, your existing code you should probably start to patching it and trying to fix the most obvious place that you need to change from automatic conversion to manually convert. And that should help your future self. Let's go to a few lowlights on the new release. I think this is actually really cool. So we have this idea of a number of parameters for blocks. And I think it will be easier to understand on the examples of how powerful this can be. So this is maybe 2.6 syntax. You have some kind of block. You usually use value or parameter or key value. And this is everywhere. It means nothing. So why don't you just use like the line one? If you're not really describing things, then just use something that is predefined on the language. It also means that if you're omitting something, so unless you usually you use like the underscore to say I don't care about this, so you just get an empty block and you can do whatever you want there and ignore the values that is passed by the block. So I think this is really cool. And also it's not like word compatible. Tally. So for someone who doesn't speak English as a native language, so this is my second language, I have no idea what Tally means, but apparently if you were born in the US or the UK, this means something for you. And so basically it's a group and counting together. You have like your data, you count them, and then you group by the two. So it looks something like this. So you get your data, and after calling tally, you get a hash if the count, the amount of times it was repeated. And apparently it can be used for generating histograms. So this is 2.7, but if you happen to be on 2.6 or earlier, you probably want to do something like this. This is like the basic way of doing it. You can also do like this, and this is 2 times lower. You can also do like this. It is 2.8 times lower. And you can also do like this, 2.3 times lower, or you can do like this, 2.1 times lower. Well, you get the idea. So please use that new method. It's faster and it's shorter. So why not? Another one, intersection. So we can run this against a collection again. And you can, by doing that, you get what is in common between the two. So it just looks like this. I haven't run any benchmark, but I imagine it's much faster than doing it by hand. Filter map. This is actually really cool. I think I've done something that required that a lot some years ago. So you're mixing together the ability of filtering something with mapping something. It looks like this. So you run your filter map. If this part here is true, then it does this part here. And you get your collection at the end. And my favorite part are the performance improvements. Well, there are a few things to talk about this. So I've been waiting for JIT, J-A-T, actually landing Ruby as a functional feature. And I was expecting that 2.7 will actually bring us some performance improvements. I asked it again the feature, so I forgot to get the screenshot, but basically the answer is nope, it's too slow. But there is one thing that I found here that is useful. So CGI Escape, you probably have been using Escape U2's Escape HTML. It used to be faster. So CGI Escape used to be like 25 or 30% slower than Escape U2's. But now it's 2.5 times faster. And why it's important? Because, well, you see those two lines? There's a good chance that most of us are here using either RB or Hamel. And these two use CGI Escape. So it has the same performance as CGI Escape. So by creating Ruby, you get faster templates. Probably if you're using some random gem over there, you may have found the third example there. It's basically running a global replacement by hand. And how much slower do you think this is? Guesses?
Using GSub.
25 times slower.
That's much.
But it can be worse. Have anyone heard about Rack? Well, if you happen to be using Hack somewhere, like if you run Rails. So Hack U2's is actually 37 times slower. I have no idea why. So maybe when I get back home, I will try to figure out what the heck they're doing there. But I think it's something related to breaking backward compatibility here. But anyway, CGI Escape, really good. And I have one last interesting story for you. You may already know that Ruby is mainly developed in Japan by Japanese people. And because it is developed in Japan by Japanese people, it usually incorporates features that are important for people who live in Japan, or do business in Japan. You may not know yet, but Japan has a calendar system that is different from ours. This calendar system works with the concept of eras. And the eras follows the reign of the emperor of Japan, who exists. So I'm very happy to announce that we are at the new Japanese era. And that means that we left the handset era and we went to the Heiwa era. So you ask me why this is important for you.
Quite.
You've seen that there is some kanji there, right? How they draw the characters. It happens to be the case that when there is a new Japanese era, they choose a new name, and that name uses new kanji. And so it used actually two kanjis, but then they mix the two together and create a new one. So there we go. That new kanji needs to be incorporated into the Unicode. And Unicode follows a version system. So whenever there is something new to Unicode, they have to release a new version. Everybody has to update. So your operation system has to update. Your language has to update. All your programs have to update.
But you can store it in my database.
And by combining the two together, you get this new kanji here. It is this scar arrow named Halo. Well, Ruby 2.7 does support the new kanji. This is how you use it. And this is also backward compatible with Ruby 2.6. So there's a new release, and you should upgrade today. But again, well, maybe you're not doing business in Japan, so why should you care? Well, with Unicode 12.1, we also get new emojis. Yay! So this is a nice side effect. But actually, this is not true. Sorry. Well, actually it is, but it's not for the same reason. I tried to figure out why I could already use those emojis in 2.6. And it happens to be that something in how Ruby uses Unicode doesn't actually use the entire library, so it already works. So no need to upgrade. You can use the new emojis. And the remaining question is Ruby 2.7 worth upgrade? Well, I think I was able to present you a few compelling reasons to do so. But 2.7 will not be super smooth to go by. But I believe that if 2.7 is the price that you have to pay for 2.0, then I'm really fine paying. Thank you.
So I do from time to time have business in Japan. And every time there's a new emperor or a new era, it's actually a problem akin to Y2K. It's a huge problem for a computer programmer, and they've only had to do this twice now. And this is the second time. The change to the Heisei era was in the 1960s or the late 1950s. 1989. Oh no, I'm thinking of the Showa era. Sorry, the Showa era was in the 1950s. So there's a transition to the Showa era, which is sort of pre-computer. The transition to Heisei, which happened in the 80s, when not many people had computers in Reiwa. Everybody's got computers, and they consistently keep dates in this format. So let's suppose that I'm not quite ready to upgrade to Ruby 2.7, but I'm also not quite ready to deal with Y2K scale problem on my servers. Like, how do I do that in Ruby 2.6 or earlier if there's not the Unicode support for the Reiwa character? Do you know? I'm just curious.
I have no idea. This is how far I went.
Okay, I'm just curious if you knew.
I think the normalization still works, so we'll just separate it into two characters. And it'll be fine.
Okay.
You just don't have to do a character. That's
If
it.
you decompose.
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
decompose.
But you also can not decompose.
And there is also the calendar thing.
Yeah.
And I hope they use some kind of integer thing that they just increase one and you get a new error. I hope they don't code things there. But you can go to the bug tracker and search for new Japanese error and things like that. You will find a lot of really interesting stuff. Also emojis. There is a really good bug there that involves elves, undeads, and something like that with emoji. You should read that. It's really, really cool.
Did you keep upgrading?
So I started. I got a bunch of warnings. Break broke. gRPC is not released yet, so it doesn't work. And I think there is also something that broke in rack. So it's the first thing.
Any other questions? Okay, that's it. Thank you. So this is the end of our meetup. Our next meetup will be the 18th of February before the announcement of meetup. and it will be hosted by Katowiki, the Temple staff or something. It's on Meetup. So you can already RSVP, and we will confirm the speakers ASAP. So
There's another
And there will be a meetup in Rotterdam, 29th of January.
yeah, yeah. Tell a bit more about that.
We'll have 2 speakers. One talk about Elixir, introduction to Elixir, and he's also going to introduce a new meetup group about Elixir in Rotterdam and Amsterdam. Yes. And it will be hosted at 42 Workspace, next to the street where all the bars are. So afterwards, we can go drinking.
Oh, let me guess. Karaoke.
And do karaoke.
Karaoke is open on Wednesday from
Yeah.
9 to 1.
That should be fun.
Okay.
29th of January. Wednesday.
Can you share the
Other
link
talk.
in the
What's the
Slack
other
channel?
talk?
Yes.
What's the other talk?
From Schiphol, but I don't know the. I'll look on the meeting.
Is it already? You're not already announced it?
It's already announced. Yes.
So we have one in Amsterdam, and we have one in Rotterdam. And please feel free to stay a while. Still.
Has drinks.
Oh, well, there you go. Here it's called. We can stay a while, have a talk, drink, and if you're interested in hosting another meetup or a Rails Girls event, because we also do that. Or Rails Girls, I mean,
Fill in the
Rails
survey. Fill in the survey, please.
JavaScript workshop, yeah. Then come to us and we'll give you all the information.
Yes.
Thank you.